Welcome to The Explainer. Today, we're diving into a seriously high-stakes ecosystem of survival. But, it's probably not the kind you'd expect. We're going deep inside the North Korean military to figure out exactly how soldiers there navigate systemic risk. And the craziest part, the absolute most profound danger these soldiers face isn't actually found on a battlefield at all. It's entirely administrative. Okay, let's dive into this. Right off the bat, we really need to understand how standard military words are just completely redefined when your main goal in life is surviving a massive bureaucratic machine. For example, in the Korean People's Army, getting an evaluation that simply calls you observant is not some nice compliment about how well you notice things around you. Not at all. It's actually a very specific, quiet confirmation that you have finally understood what the system requires of you to survive. And that really brings us to the core question we're exploring today. How do you survive a system where your absolute greatest enemy is your own paperwork? For these soldiers, every single file, every logged incident, every single evaluation, it's a permanent liability that has to be incredibly carefully managed. To really wrap our heads around this, we've mapped out a chronological roadmap of a soldier's life. We're tracing this massive escalation arc. It starts with a 17-year-old conscript getting drafted into basic training, moves up to a 25-year-old non-commissioned officer entering the permanent structure, then all the way to a 51-year-old lieutenant general, and finally, a 56-year-old four-star general facing the final audit. And as we'll see, at every single one of these steps, the nature of the systemic risk radically evolves. And that means the tools you need to survive it, well, they have to evolve too. Phase 1, the foundation of compliance, navigating levels 1 through 3. So at this first stage, a drafted 17-year-old conscript is basically just a unit of manpower. They are learning the absolute baseline of survival in a system that honestly doesn't particularly need to know their name. For a 17-year-old, those initial hardships are intensely physical. We're talking sleeping in unheated concrete rooms where the wind just howls through the window frames. They train with wooden replica rifles because actual weapons are only handed out during strictly supervised training. And the food is so scarce that within about 2 weeks, extreme hunger literally stops feeling like a signal and just becomes background noise. But shockingly, the much, much more dangerous threat they're introduced to is ideological risk, specifically the weekly self-criticism sessions known as Sang Wal Chongwa. Picture this. Every Saturday, soldiers sit in rows. The ultimate survival tactic here is what we might call strategic mediocrity. You have to find that perfect sweet spot, a confession that's specific enough to sound genuine, but totally boring enough to be completely unchallengeable. Like confessing that you lost concentration during a weekly political reading. Perfect. You accept the criticism, you safely criticize someone else, and you sit back down. But if you struggle or hesitate, the political officer notes your reduced ideological engagement. And that right there is a documented failure you absolutely want to avoid. Which brings us to a really crucial incident that perfectly illustrates how these young soldiers manage risk. Imagine you're on patrol with a peer. Let's call him Ogwang. He looks out and casually mentions that a factory his cousin works at hasn't run at full capacity in 2 years because of electricity rations. Wow, that is a dangerous comment. So what do you write in the weekly observation log? You write exactly this. Express concern regarding industrial conditions, likely family-related anxiety. You see what happened there? This is the absolute safest possible language. You aren't necessarily protecting him. You're covering your own tracks to manage the risk of what that comment could turn into in someone else's permanent paperwork if it goes unchecked. Phase 2, the burden of the record, navigating levels 4 through 7. At this stage, the conscripts leave, and you enter the permanent institution of the military as an NCO or a junior officer. And suddenly, the danger pivots completely away from spoken words and morphs entirely into documented permanence. You start having to coordinate with company political officers. And get this, they hold equal authority to the company commander. So now every single operational decision, deployments, maintenance, training, has to pass through this invisible filter. You have to ask yourself, does this create an ideological documentation problem? If the answer is yes, the operation isn't necessarily blocked, but it is very carefully adjusted. Now, what's really interesting about this scenario is seeing that burden in action. Imagine a massive combined arms exercise near the DMZ. At 2:10 a.m. on the 6th night, a private fractures his ankle. Medical evacuation is approved and locked. Sounds totally routine, right? But the very next morning, the regimental political officer casually asks if the training load was appropriate. As an NCO, that training calendar bears your name on the header of every single page. You cite the approved framework, the officer writes it down, and nothing comes of it. Today. But that question, written and filed, stays with you forever. An answered question today can become a massive liability tomorrow, all because files are permanent. And this leads to a huge defining realization when you become a commissioned officer. You absolutely must be measured. Let me tell you a quick story about an officer named Yoon Chol-jin. During a political analysis training, he delivered an answer with excessive confidence. He even cited an unprompted 1975 historical speech. 2 days later, he was called into a private meeting with a senior political officer, and wouldn't you know it, his subsequent analyses were noticeably quieter and a lot shorter. Being measured is literally the only rational goal. Why? Because performance that exceeds what the system asks for isn't an asset, it's a question. And questions take weeks to surface consequences. Being measured costs nothing, but it protects everything. And you better believe this paranoia extends to every single record. During a 10-day inspection from the General Staff Department, an inspector might find a tiny, minor filing discrepancy. Let's say 17 bullets expended in a supplementary drill under a slightly different document code. You explain it, they accept it, but then they write down, quote, satisfactory with minor administrative variance noted. That tiny little variance is now on your permanent record. It teaches this terrifying lesson that the distance between a simple filing inconsistency and a permanent career-ending notation is basically microscopic. Let's move on and see how this builds into Phase 3, Managing the Truth Gap, navigating levels 8 through 9. Now that you've got stars on your shoulder and you're stationed in Pyongyang, the systemic risk hasn't disappeared. It's just mutated. Now it's all about managing the massive gap between reality and institutional demands. When we compare reported readiness data from field commands against independent intelligence, like satellite imagery, the gaps are just glaring. A unit reports 94% equipment readiness, but the imagery suggests 78%. They report 100% full training completion, but the fuel data suggests 81%. This is a quiet, systemic agreement built into absolutely every level. The numbers reaching Pyongyang must always tell a story of strength, regardless of what the truth actually is. So, what happens when your superior takes your meticulously accurate report and smoothly changes the figures upward with a pen in like 40 seconds flat? Well, you learn to maintain 2 sets of books. The adjusted version travels upward, the accurate analysis, that goes into a locked drawer. And you know full well that a lock provides no real security. You keep it there as a private, psychological record of the exact numerical distance between the truth and your own survival. Because the margins for error up here, they are literally non-existent. Take General O, for example. He sat at advisory meetings for 11 years. Then one day, his chair is just empty. Through indirect channels, you find out he made a statement in a closed briefing reflecting insufficient confidence in strategic leadership. 36 years of documented loyalty completely vanished because of just one single sentence, spoken in the wrong room to the wrong audience. Every career-ending moment at this level isn't caused by incompetence. It's caused by a visible gap between what a person actually believes and what the system requires in that exact moment.
Phase 4, the final extraction, navigating level 10.
Okay, so now you are a 56-year-old, 4-star general. You have played the game absolutely perfectly for decades. But the end begins with a terrifyingly polite administrative procedure. 2 officers arrive and initiate a review over a 22-month-old missile readiness evaluation that you simply certified. The field had reported 91%, but an internal audit placed it at 73%. You are then placed in a government facility for 9 weeks. It is clean, it is heated, but it is quietly, intensely isolated. No operational networks, no driver, no information. The isolation itself is the punishment for a completely standard numerical adjustment that passed over your desk. At the end of those 9 weeks, you aren't thrown in prison. Your rank isn't even formally revoked. Instead, you're just quietly edited out. Your portrait comes down, your name is meticulously removed from doctrines you co-authored and from all the active registries. And then, you're given a quote-unquote reassignment to teach young lieutenants operational command doctrine at some regional facility in the exact same province where you were born. It is a hauntingly bureaucratic end to nearly 4 decades of service. So, the crucial point is this chilling realization from a veteran officer. A young lieutenant asks you what separates an officer who advances from one who doesn't, and you realize this profound, dark truth. The system was never designed to reward loyalty, it was designed to extract it. The officers who climbed the highest, they weren't the most loyal. They simply knew exactly when to display it, exactly when to conceal it, and exactly when to ensure someone else's name sat on a document before the risk actually arrived. In the end, you finish your career stripped of your influence, teaching lessons you no longer fully believe to young men who look exactly like you did at 17. And it leaves us with this incredibly powerful universal question, whether you're looking at a military regime or even just navigating a super rigid corporate ladder. What is the true cost of surviving a system by continually sacrificing your own truth? Thank you so much for exploring this fascinating systemic architecture with me in this explainer. Until next time, keep questioning the systems around you.